Hello, my name is Gregor von Laschewski, and today I talk to you about cloudmesh-cloud and how easy it is to contribute to cloudmesh-cloud. This is a repository that you have installed via our CloudMesh installer, and in it we define providers that provider classes in Python that access infrastructure as a service. It includes two main directories, the tests and the CloudMesh directory. So let's start out with the tests. The tests are being executed by alphabetical order if you specify the directory. And we haven't actually just completed the alphabetical order because not everything has yet a number. So there are certain tests in there that are not yet evolved. So we have, for example, tests that are being done on the local machine. And we have tests done on maybe security, but this particular security is not completed. We have excluded this at this time because the student project was not yet completed. So one of the things that we have is we have a CloudMesh test directory. Here we have a number of 10 tests that are being executed in order, and I show you how easy it is to execute the tests. We can just take the line here with this particular test, go to our CloudMesh cloud directory. So let's cd to that particular directory. And now we execute the test. And as you can see, the test is being executed. And here we have an easy way of showcasing you what that test is about. We need to have some information about your system when we do benchmarks, such as, is your system sufficiently modern? Do you have enough memory? Did you not use up all your memory to do your test? And so forth, in order to make sure that this the test that you will be doing as part of your project will be relevant. So we have given you many different tests that showcase you how to do that thing. And you will be developing as part of your project such tests so that we can automatize that particular process. One thing that's important to notice is that we have also the ability to execute all the tests in one directory. So we can just put the cloud in. Because this test takes a little longer, I'm not going to be executing that test now, but you as a student are expected to run the CloudMesh test for cloud on, for example, the Chameleon cloud. And one of the things is that all tests in this cloud directory do function on a cloud that you need to be setting with our CloudMesh cloud command. I will be demonstrating this to you in a few seconds. So you can execute all of these commands while using just the cloud directory, or you specify the file name just as we showed previously. So let's make sure what would you have to do to run this, for example, on Chameleon Cloud. So we need to set the cloud to Chameleon. And then that particular test that we said that we want to explore needs to be copied. And so let's copy here once more our directory test. We want to execute everything, and then we can run this. Naturally, lots of things can happen during such a test because this is a production level test. For example, CloudMesh may report an error, but the error may not be related to CloudMesh, but actually to Chameleon Cloud itself, because Chameleon Cloud may be down. So I have talked about the tests. Let's switch back to our CloudMesh code. In the CloudMesh code, we have one important directory, which is the abstract class, in which we define how, for example, a compute provider is. Here we have methods of how do you start a virtual machine, how do you stop it, how do you list all the virtual machine, how do you create one, and so forth and so forth. And your task of the project would be to implement all these functions, not in this abstract class, but into a provider class that is being inheriting from this abstract class. So if you don't have the knowledge about abstract classes, it's really rather trivial. You just inherit from this class and just implement each one of them. Just be sure, because one of the classes is a little bit more complex to implement. That's the security group. but it's still very easy to do. So let's go to our compute directory, and here we are looking at the Amazon that has a provider that you need to be implementing. If you do OpenStack, it has no provider. If you do Azure, it has a provider, and so forth. Many of these classes are already implemented, such as OpenStack and Amazon. Azure still needs to be completed, so who works on Azure needs to be making sure that this provider is being completed. It's mostly around security provider. So here we have now the OpenStack provider, and as you can see, I've provided an implementation to all the methods that are in the compute abstract base class. As you can see, this is the abstract base class. And let's go back to the compute provider that we need to be implementing. As you can see here, this is all the methods that are in the base class have been provided in the OpenStack provider. Make sure you remove the abstract class method in case you develop a new provider. We have, for example, some students that will be developing new providers, and make sure that's the case. So we have the provider, and it inherits from the abstract base class, and then we implement all the methods. And here let's take, for example, an example from maybe key list. And here we show you that this is a method that's internally implemented because it has a self, but it actually calls out to a cloud manager. And this cloud manager is the native method of how do you invoke a list of keys in the OpenStack Python API to put the keys out. Let's take a more simple function. Let's take here the key delete function. So there is a function there that says this is delete me the key in my OpenStack cloud. So this function is being implemented in a very different way in each one of the clouds, and it depends on the cloud on the Python API for that particular cloud, how that method is being implemented. So let's take a look at another cloud. So minimize the other information so that you can better see it. So we go to provider from Amazon, and we are locating now the delete function for the key. And as you can see, the implementation there looks quite different from the implementation that we have for OpenStack. But it's just a one line. So many of these functions that are being implemented here are one-line functions, or you copy even from OpenStack or from Amazon or other cloud providers similar functions and then identify the information that needs to be passed through from that particular cloud. And that's one of the biggest problems that you will have. You will have to read the manual for your cloud and identify the function. And that's the reason why this is such a straightforward and easy project for class, because you're staying within one file for your particular cloud and you have to implement it. Now, one of the things that we have also to do is we have to integrate this. However, the good news for this is that I do all of that particular stuff so that your cloud that is being inherited from a provider list into it, I can take a look what the name of your cloud is, or the kind of your cloud is, I should say. And dependent on the kind of the cloud, I read that particular cloud provider out of a list that I simply have written for you, and you don't have to worry about this. In addition, let's just point that out. There's the provider list, so you don't have to worry about this. I will be making sure that that is being updated. You can see where we, for example, inherit this out of, for example, cloudmesh.provider, import provider, and there we have the provider list as one of the functions. So we can take a look at this particular directory if you would be interested in this. But it really, as I said, you don't actually have to worry about this. So there's this provider, and there is a provider list at one point. So let's go back to some of our provider commands that we actually have. And here we have this command where we load, for example, our providers into such a list, and we can display it with a command that we actually have to showcase which providers do actually exist in cloudmesh. So let's go back to our compute. We have many other providers, and one of the tasks that the Google project is doing is we have a libcloud provider, and we would like to replace this libcloud provider with the native Google Python API, because we found that libcloud is actually not that convenient despite the fact how many people are using it. We find that it's better because many clouds have extensive Python APIs that provide many more convenient features than libcloud provide. In a matter of fact, the integration of OpenStack, for example, into our cloud mesh model was much simpler than using libcloud. So we find that if the cloud provides dictionaries, they as a return or as a JSON object, the integration of this is much easier. libcloud does not really use dictionaries. It uses an object abstraction, which in our case is not needed, and therefore libcloud would not be a really good library for us, and we have decided to abandon libcloud at this time in favor of native cloud providers that are exposed to Python APIs. So that was the explanation about how we work on providers. One of the things that I would like to, in addition, refer to is at the beginning of the cloud, we have certain attributes, such as, for example, the state, but we have also an output dictionary in which we specify how tables are being printed. And so we have an order, and we have a header and a sort key. And the order specifies basically in which order the information is printed with our flattened dictionary. So you see the dot notation. So there is in that particular dict that is going to be printed a CM dict with a name in it, or CM with a cloud in it, and so forth. And the header specifies how it's being printed. So here we have an example for example, virtual machines on OpenStack. And the order is specified like this, and this gives you the headers. And here we have images, and here we have flavors. So I would like to focus now on the flavors because that's really easy to understand. So I go now how our CMS command prints out the flavors for the cloud. So I need to be listing it and doing refresh because it needs to store it first into the database, and then it prints the values from the database out in a table form. And the table is being governed by that particular information that we have at the beginning of this provider. So in case you don't have a provider yet, the simplest thing would be just to copy what we have done in other clouds and fix it and repair it so that it's applying to your particular cloud. So here you see what the order is, and here you see how the table headers are looking like. And if you go back to our screen, you could see this. And so we have naturally IPs, security groups, security rules, keys, flavors, images, virtual machines, and even the status. So with this, I think we have given you a really relatively good overview about what you have to do. The good news is if you have to develop a provider, you just stay in that particular provider and you improve it. And you do all the functions that have to be implemented as part of that provider. So there is not much else to say. If you have questions, please ask them. Thank you.